This evening, for those of you that are not familiar with who I am, my name is John Smolinski, and I'm the Executive Director of the Wakefield Lynnfield Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. We're very excited to be able to have the annual meeting once again, now that COVID's gone and getting back to meeting in person. It's becoming a real genuine pleasure once again to be able to get out and enjoy each other's company. We have a very special guest speaker this evening that I'm very excited to introduce you in a little while. But I would at this point like to acknowledge a few people that are here. Representative Brad Jones is here, the Minority Leader. Brad. The esteemed and estimable Mr. Tall Donald Wong. Donald, stand up. No, you really can't tell the difference when he's standing up and sitting down, I know, so I guess we'll leave it at that. Our town manager, Mr. Mayo. And I know he's shy, but our Deputy Chief of Police, Craig Calabrese. And an individual that I enjoy working with very much that does a great job for the town and the business community, Eric Kinkinda. Aaron? I also want to thank the Board of Directors that are here. I'll have them introduce to you a little bit later. And I want you to enjoy your dinner. But before that, I'd like to invite Mr. Mayo to come up and say a few words of welcome on behalf of the town. Mr. Mayo?
Thank you, John. And on behalf of the Town Council, and there will be a number of them that will be flying in shortly from another event, I do want to welcome you to the Sheraton here. I almost said the Colonial, going back to my old days. Those remember that, a lot of great times. This is a wonderful organization. We thank you for everything that you do to make Wakefield a much better community. And the last few years that I've been up here, pre-COVID, with my Lynnfield friends, and I've always teased them, calling this the Greater Wakefield Chamber of Commerce. And I think maybe I was a little prophetic. I think so. Maybe a little bit prophetic. So I'm glad that Brad is here to Representative Jones to represent Lynnfield tonight. But it is so nice to be, the Wakefield area. The Wakefield Area Chamber of Commerce. So thank you for all of you for everything you do every day. Thank you to WCAT for filming tonight. And while I'm here, I'm going much longer than you wanted, John, I know. When we had the legislative breakfast, you had a number of legislators up here. And the question was asked from the floor about how are we going to help maintain local access TV. And you had what, 6, 7, 8 legislators here that night. And I'm happy to tell you that there is some life behind the streaming bill to help cable TV, and I think a big part of that is the advocacy from the Chamber of Commerce. So thank you, John, in making everybody's lives better. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Steve. Please enjoy your dinner. It'll be coming out very, very shortly. As Steve said, some of the town councilors, there's 3 coming that'll be joining us shortly. But enjoy your dinner, and we'll be back with our program right afterwards. Thank you very much. Hello again, everybody. We'd like to get on with the evening's program, so continue to enjoy your coffee and your dessert, and we'll get the evening moving forward. As I mentioned to you earlier, we have a very special guest speaker, and I'm very excited to be able to welcome her to our event this evening. And I'm very, very glad we've had the opportunity to have such a gracious speaker with us this evening. From the Republic of Germany Consulate in Boston, we have the General Consul that's going to speak with us this evening. Doctor, you got to help me with this, okay? Okay, Sonja. Can I get away with Sonja? Because I'm not going to say this right. Sonja Kreibich. Close enough. So, Sonja, if you'd come up, please. Give her a round of applause. When I reached out to the consulate, I was asking for someone that could come up and, please, Sonja, come up, and speak to us. I was wondering in my own mind what it would be like if a conflict such as what's going on in Ukraine was happening on our border, as in, up in Canada or someplace close, versus being on the other side of the ocean. So I wrote to the consulate asking if someone could come represent to us or present to us what it's like having a conflict like that on your own borders, affecting your own citizenship, not just with your citizens living there, but the immigration that's happening with the refugees that are flooding into the country and the countries around Europe. The consulate was very gracious to send us their Consul General, and I'm very proud to welcome her this evening and introduce her to you. Sonja?
Thank you, John. Thank you, state representatives. Thank you for everybody for allowing me to be here. It's also a great opportunity for me. You mentioned that Ukraine is a war in Europe right on our borders, and I've actually presented a few slides just to guide you through what I'm going to tell you, but I will also be here to answer questions that you may have afterwards. We spoke at the table. The title of the presentation as it stands now is Germany and the War in Ukraine. This is actually a term that I'm a career diplomat, so we have some. So we're actually not expected or supposed to say it like this, because what we say, it's the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, which is the more correct term, and because it describes what's actually happening in Europe right now. A quick map of Germany. I'm sure everybody is familiar with Germany. It's a country at the heart of Europe with a very complicated and interesting history. 80 million inhabitants. We are also a federal state like the US. I always love to learn more about federalism in the US and draw a comparison to how we do things in Germany. One major difference, I believe, is that we have 7 main political parties. 3 of them form a coalition at federal level these days currently, and we also have different coalition governments at each of the states. So it's actually a very complicated political system. But in the end, having so many different parties encourages the willingness to compromise, because you always meet each other twice, and you may have to be able to work together in a different constellation in the future. Germany is the economic powerhouse of Europe, with our specific strength in machine building, electrical engineering, and environmental technologies. The US is Germany's most important export partner, and we mostly export machinery, chemicals, vehicles. Some of you may know German cars, and electronics. We also have a relatively strong presence in, I'm the Consul General to the New England states based in Boston, so of course working with biotech in the region is an important part of what we do. There are some major German pharmaceutical companies, Bayer, you may know, but also there are 2 Merck companies. One is Merck US and one is Merck Germany, and Merck Germany under a different name is also in Billerica, sort of not far from here. A quick word on energy, because we'll talk about energy again later. Germany has set itself very ambitious climate goals. We aim to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. We've already come a long way, so renewables account for 46% of our current energy mix. And the crisis with Ukraine has given this additional importance and impetus, because we learned that being dependent on energy coming from somewhere else is not a good choice, and energy that comes from sun or wind and is generated within your country actually also ensures your own independence and sovereignty. So, speaking about Germany and Ukraine, I prepared a small map. This is about the same scale, showing you that the difference between Berlin and Kiev is about the geographical difference between Cincinnati and Boston. You spoke about imagining this was a war across the border to Canada. Cincinnati is also not so far from here. And I mean, there is a major, massive war going on in the heart of Europe. And it was started by Russia, unprovoked. The sovereignty of a country in Europe was broken. When that happened in February last year, Europe, I think we all remember these times, but for Germany this was a major event also in how we looked at security in Europe, because as a country right in the heart of Europe, with its difficult history, part of Germany used to be part of the Soviet bloc until reunification. We've always had we've always thought that building bridges, economic and political ties between East and West would actually contribute to security and stability in Europe. And we learned that this hadn't worked. So Germany had to really pivot around within an extremely short period of time and reposition itself sort of globally and in its security policy. And we called that, or our Chancellor Olaf Scholz called that a Zeitenwende, which is a title change. There are different translations for that, but it's clearly there is a time before and after. This is what it means, and I will explain later what this means in detail. Then just not to forget about that, there are also, of course, other current global issues that demand our attention. It's the rising multipolarity. It's not only Russia, the US, and Europe somewhere in between. It's also the rising dominance and importance of, and also sort of assertiveness of China. And I know that they're currently sort of, this is also a very hot topic in the US, how to deal with China. The position that Germany takes at this moment in time, that China for us is a partner, competitor, and rival at the same time. It's a very complex position, and Germany is in the process of giving itself a new China strategy, which isn't formalized yet, so I'm waiting to see how this looks like. So, when the war started, we talked about it over dinner. Everybody thought Ukraine is not standing any chance that this will be over in maybe 6 weeks. But the Ukrainians proved ourselves differently, and they've held up admirably. But of course also thanks to international support. And Germany is, by now, it's one of Ukraine's largest weapon suppliers. We just recently announced a $3 billion US aid package, the biggest yet. And German weapons, German tanks, it took us a while to decide to deliver them, but they're on the ground now and they're really making a difference. But of course the war also had implications for Germany, and the most important of them was our energy supply. Because as a result of this, it was a strategic decision, but we had thought that building economic interdependence with Russia, also through energy supply, would contribute to stability in Europe. So Russia was our most important supplier of coal, oil, and natural gas. And then from one day to the other, we had to, well, we wanted to reduce it. We also had to reduce it. There was a famous pipeline in the Baltic Sea that was blown up miraculously. I don't think we will ever know for sure who did it. But so we also couldn't receive any natural gas from Russia anymore. So within an extremely short period of time, we had to look for alternatives. That was a time of great anxiety in Germany, because sort of it was still summer, but we knew winter would be approaching, and people were really talking about getting warm blankets and maybe buying a supply of candles, so if power went out. In the end, we managed surprisingly well, so there was no shortage of energy over the winter. It was also a relatively warm winter. But we managed to secure alternative supply, including LNG from the US. We built in record time, we built our first ever LNG terminal. We hadn't had one before because we thought we'd get gas through pipelines from Russia. We also doubled down on moving to renewables, because that was sort of the moment where we realized having to import your energy from somewhere else may be not the best choice. So Germany had started on that trajectory before. I had spoken about it, but this really again gave us the impetus. And it's not only moving to transitioning to renewables, it's also investing in energy efficiency, investing heavily. We're currently having a major domestic political debate about reforming heating systems in Germany. So it was decided that, well, the end date was pushed out a bit, but by 28, nobody will be allowed to install any new fossil fuel heatings in German housing. There will be public support for that transition period, but sort of if you will be allowed to use your gas heating system as long as it keeps running, but once it breaks down and you have to replace it, there won't be any gas systems afterwards. These are difficult policy decisions, and there was a major. It took us a very long time to come to that political agreement, and it almost blew up our coalition government. But this week they finally came down with a solution. But these are the decisions that we have to take, and we also want to take them because it helps us on our way to reaching the climate goals. But it also showed us we simply have to reduce our energy consumption. Coming back to the war, and of course those who suffer most from the war are not the Germans who may have to wear an additional sweater over the winter, but the people in Ukraine. And I remember very well, I lived in Berlin until summer last year, and during the first month of the war, or during the first weeks of the war, every night trains arrived at Berlin Central Station and loaded with mostly women and children fleeing the war. So I went to the train station, I had a look at it myself, and it was really overwhelming. But by now, Germany has received more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees, still mostly women and children, because men in fighting age are also still not allowed to leave the country. More than 200,000 Ukrainian children attend German schools. We have some experience in integrating refugees because we've had this major migration crisis in 2015, 2016, when more than 1 million, mostly Syrian and Middle East and Afghan refugees arrived. So we ramped up our procedures from back then, and it was not easy. These refugees enjoy legal status comparable to a green card holder, so they're allowed to work. They're also entitled to all social benefits that German citizens enjoy, so the unemployment benefits, healthcare, free schools, free university education. So it's a major undertaking. We also deliver humanitarian aid, of course, to Ukraine. Just one example, we delivered, after the breach of the dam in Ukraine, I think last week, we immediately sent over 56 power generators and water filtration systems for people living there. Yes, and of course, maybe last word, we spoke about it. Do we know how long this war is going to take? No, we don't. Just this week, Vladimir Putin gave a press conference to some military bloggers, and they asked him about what are your objectives? What do you want to achieve in that war? And he kept it extremely vague, so it may well be that this drags on for many years. And of course, the humanitarian situation is not going to get any better very soon. And then, even if the war ends soon, I mean, those who are following the news and see the daily destruction that is happening in Ukraine every day, it's going to take a long time and a lot of international money to rebuild this country. And we're not talking about sort of where Ukraine may end up in a new geostrategic setup. They applied for membership in the European Union. This is something that the European Union is going to consider, but it's going to take some while to get them there. As I mentioned, we've also felt the effects in Germany. We've experienced unusually high inflation. A sharp rise in energy prices has gone down a bit again. But public support of Ukraine and our support for Ukraine remains extremely high, with over 70% of Germans expressing support. So there is a very strong political consensus that there is no alternative to supporting Ukraine in these times. So before I end, I'm going to add something. It's brand new. Just yesterday, the German government presented its first ever national security strategy. We haven't had something like that in the past. The project was started before the war started, so it's been in the making for a while. But of course, the war in Ukraine has given it a new importance. So yesterday it was presented by our government as a whole, and draws conclusions for Germany's mid and long-term security policy. The strategy, if you're interested, it's online, also in English, you can look it up. Three central tenets: robustness. That includes, and I know that there has been a long discussion in this country about this point. It includes the commitment of paying 2% of the GDP to defense expenditure. This is also sort of this NATO criterion that was raised in the past, and it will mostly go into equipment and strengthening our Bundeswehr, which is our national defense. The second tenet is resilience. It's also about safeguarding our inner strength, including our democracy, because you need to have a very, these are challenging times, and you need to make sure that you're well grounded in democratic values. We also committed to upholding the principles of the Charter of the United Nations, universal human rights, and international law. And I'm trying to go there. I don't know how. But we also believe that the solution does not lie in sort of repartitioning the world into different spheres of influence, but more in adherence to a global world order that subscribes to certain basic principles, starting with the rule of international law. And we pledge to work with all countries that feel likewise. And I'm very lucky to know that I work in a country right now which we see as an indispensable partner in that. And the third part is sustainability, and it also we have been made very aware of the fact that containing the climate crisis is not only sort of an ecological task, but also a security. Well, the climate crisis poses security challenges, and it's become a security issue. So we have to tackle that, and it's very clear through that new security strategy that we will have to continue to work on that. So this is my short overview. Thank you very much. If you like to follow us on social media, this is your chance to get to. But you can also just look it up, and I'm very I would be happy to answer questions that you may have on the basis of what I said. There's one question, yes.
Where would Europe be now if the U.S. spent a maximum of 2% of its GDP on defense items? I'm saying, where would Europe be now if the United States spent 2% of its
only
GDP?
2%.
It's been spending much more. but yet Europe, and I'm not against that, I'm just thinking all along, I've been thinking, what are the Europeans thinking when they have a problem getting up to 2%,
Well, as I said, I mentioned the word Zeitenwende, and I tried to explain where we came from. I think the understanding has settled in that we may have underspent in the past, but there really was the sort of generations of politicians in Germany were convinced that we may not need that much defense spending because we sort of constructed a different network of interdependence in Europe that secured peace and security in Europe through other means, and we were proven wrong. And the German government has publicly declared that this assessment was wrong. So now the firm commitment is there. And also back then last year, the German parliament approved an additional budget that secured this additional defense spending that we need to undertake for the next, I don't remember the end term of that additional budget, but in the security strategy now it's clear that this will continue. But we have corrected our position. And it's been very clear also, and it's been repeated many times, that we would not have enjoyed the same security and peace in Europe over the last decade were it not with the with the backing and the security backing that came from the US. Yeah. There's another question.
Yeah. Do you know much discrepancy between the news that is received in Europe, either international news or U.S. domestic news, and the news that you see and read here, the news that you consume? Is it very different?
I think it depends on which news you consume here. So, but it's.
The papers of record, okay?
Well, I read the New York Times every day, and I love reading it, and I think there is not much of a difference. Today there was a piece in the Times about the strategy, and it criticized some parts, and this is entirely appropriate, and this is how sort of both sides of the Atlantic should exchange news. But to be honest, it also depends on which news you follow in Europe. There's also there are different narratives, and there's also a lot of strategic miscommunication. The European countries have come together to devise strategies against that, because we knew back then that Russia was trying to influence public opinion through news outlets in Europe, and very early in the war, there were attempts, and they were mostly successful at shutting them down, but there's still sort of Telegram chat groups that are spreading an alternative narrative on what's happening in Ukraine. And so this is a constant challenge. Yeah.
Putin has recently suggested that he might increase his efforts. If he were to do that and go to some other options, nuclear options or something like that, what effect would that have on Germany?
It would have a devastating effect on all of Europe. And I remember very well, I mean, this were completely different circumstances, but when the nuclear power plant in Chernobyl, which is very close in the region, when there was this major accident, I was a kid, but I still remember how this impacted Germany, because all the nuclear fallout actually went down on Germany, and for weeks we only bought like pre-packaged milk that had sort of predated the accident. So it would have major consequences, yes. It already has, in a way. I mean, I showed you the map. This is very close, and by the way, I used to work in Africa policy before I moved to Boston. It also has had major effects on worldwide. There were these times. By now, it's become a bit better, but Ukraine was the grain exporter of the world, and there were sort of famines all across Africa because people couldn't get their corn and wheat anymore. Yes.
You had mentioned that Ukraine is trying to be part of NATO. What does it take to do that? And is the war holding that up now?
Well, you have to apply for membership. I'm not entirely sure whether they have already. They have submitted an application for membership in the European Union. I personally don't know whether they have done so for NATO, but it's very clear that NATO will not admit new members that are sort of an active war zone. So this is something that may happen in the future. And with European Union membership, they have applied for membership, and in this new security strategy, sort of Ukraine is mentioned as one of the countries in Eastern Europe that may be considered for European Union membership in the future. But before you get there, there's a fixed process of how to get there, and you have to fulfill certain criteria. It's taken the Western Balkan countries. They've been trying to become European Union members for many years, and they're still not there, because it's going to be a major challenge for Ukraine, because we all know this country is, it's half destroyed. So before they get to, they have to rebuild themselves first. Yes.
Can you talk about resilience of the Ukrainian people and the resilience in Germany and Europe for this?
Well, the resilience of the Ukrainian people is admirable. I just think it's amazing how they're holding up, and there were also, I spoke about the many refugees. There are also refugees going back, also women going back because they want to fight for their country. I also gave you the number of sort of public support for this in Germany, but the longer this takes, the more difficult it will be to maintain that level of public support, because it also costs the taxpayer in Germany. So this is very clear. So far, there has been overwhelming public support across almost the entire political spectrum in Germany. I mentioned that we have seven main parties, and there's one party on the extreme right and one party on the extreme left who are sort of a bit shaky, but they don't play, they are not in a government role, so they are shaky, but they don't take decisions. Yes?
East Germany, having lived under the communist, under the Russian regime, and had direct experience with it, how could they not support the Ukraine effort all the way? How could that ever weaken?
It's interesting. I mentioned that there are sort of two parties that are shaky on the two fringes of the political spectrum. The one to the extreme left has sort of inherited the electorate from the former GDR political party, and they had a very hard time sort of breaking with this idea that Russia was your friend. And the party on the extreme right also has its strongholds in Eastern Germany. So it's actually in Eastern Germany, even though it has been under Soviet rule for so many times, that sort of the sympathies lie often more with Russia than with Ukraine. Okay. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Hang on a second. Representative Wong wants to say something. Okay, we do have a little business to take care of this evening as well, and we'll move right along with that. I borrowed Janice's glasses, if any of you are wondering, I don't normally wear pink or purple glasses, but thank you, Janice. Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all. We're very blessed to have Sonja here. We don't always get a speaker of that quality to be able to come out to a chamber and speak to us on such a personal level. As you can hear some of the emotion in her voice, it hits home to her. And when you look at the map and you see how close it really is to her homeland and what she's gone through, coming here today was a big help for us. So what I'd like to do is at least start with introducing to you the board members that are here, the ones that volunteer their time throughout the year to help make this chamber what it is for you, what it is for the community. You've just recently seen Chris and Janice, who are the co-presidents of the board. So Chris and Janice, thank you very much. I can honestly say it's been a pleasure working with Chris and Janice. I hadn't expected to be at the chamber for 6 years, and yet here I am. And for that 6 years, these two, this lady and this gentleman, have made the job very, very enjoyable and rewarding. So I commend both of you, and I thank you sincerely. With that, I would like to introduce some of the other board members that are here, and they're spread out around the room. So just, when I mention your name, just stand and remain standing, and we'll get one applause at the end for everybody. So Suzanne Bowering is out there, our first vice president someplace. Suzanne, thank you very much. Allie Hooten is out there, Allie. We have Cheryl Carroll. Cheryl. There's Ann. Well, Ann Hadley over here. Dina's out there someplace. Dina McGovern. There we go. I don't see Catherine McDonald, but Rob's out there. Rob Brogna. Peter Rossetti. Roseanne Russell. And I think that's everybody. So give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. They volunteer their time. Oh, and Lisa. Lisa McKenna, stand up. Well, I forget whether it was she, formerly of the Dockside, now of Free and Clear, I guess, Lisa, right? And Jeff, right in front of me. And you know, Jeff, you're the first name on the list. Yeah, and you really are. You're right there. And Jeff Worth. I'm sorry, Jeff. With that, I do have one piece of official business, and Mr. Mullen, our legal counsel, town counsel as well, was going to be here to do this, but he texted me and said he's tied up in court waiting for a jury to come in with a verdict. I hope it was a good one, because we want him to be a happy man. But we did send out a notice to the members of a change to the bylaws, and I'm going to read it to you, just to remind you of what it was. Pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 180, Article 12 of the bylaws of the Wakefield Chamber of Commerce, and all other applicable law, notice is hereby given to all members of the corporation that at the meeting being held at 4 Points Sheridan on Thursday, June 15th at 6 o'clock, said members will be asked to vote on the following resolution. 1, resolve that the articles of organization of the corporation be amended to change the name of the corporation from Wakefield Lynnfield Chamber of Commerce to the Wakefield Area Chamber of Commerce. The message was well taken, Mr. Mayor. Also, that the bylaws of the corporation be amended to change the name of the corporation from Wakefield Lynnfield Chamber of Commerce, Inc. to the Wakefield Area Chamber of Commerce, Inc. Those were sent out to you, and we're now ready to present those to you for acceptance and adoption, and I'd like to take a motion from the floor on those articles. So move, Mr. DeBella, second by Chris, and Cheryl. I saw your hand go up. I'd like to have any discussion on the motion. If not, all in favor? Any opposed? So be it. Thank you all very, very much. We are now the Wakefield Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. Which will allow us to continue to expand and grow. One of the things that COVID did to a lot of chambers was a lot of businesses disappeared. And when businesses disappear, that impacts chambers of commerce, not just ours, but many around us. Some chambers had to merge. Some actually closed. We were fortunate that did not impact us in that fashion, and we're here today. And hopefully we'll continue to grow as strong as ever. And that'll be because of all of you and the great work done by our board of directors. I'd like to go on to just a few awards that we have at this point in time. One of the awards we're going to give this year goes to an organization or a group of individuals that are really do you have a lot of good things about, and you don't always have the opportunity to show your appreciation, and these individuals like to try to stay out of the limelight. But our board felt that based upon the cooperation and the shared participation we've had over the last few years with this group that represents Wakefield and the finest of manners, that we would like to present this year's Community Service Award to the Wakefield Police Department. Craig? This is, come on up, Craig, please. He's like man behind the curtain. We've done a lot of things, a lot of good things with this police department and the resources that they provide to us and the way they assist us. It's a wonderful organization. The leadership is the best, finest quality that you'll find. You don't hear many problems coming up about the Wakefield Police Department, and that's because of the leadership that's there and the good job that they do. We recently, because of the deputy chief and the chief, had a catalytic converter etching program to stop catalytic converter thefts down at Wakefield Subaru, that the chief and the deputy chief spent their day themselves down there with us to have that program done. They've helped us annually through COVID by working with us for our Santa Parade for the families and the children of the town when they couldn't come out and get into participation in other areas. They've worked with us for an active shooter program. They've worked with us on teaching the community about scams, and they've worked with us in a number of other ways behind the scenes that you don't see. So it was with great pleasure and great satisfaction and pride that I present this Community Service Award to Deputy Chief Calabrese. You're welcome to say anything, Craig, if you like, but...
Didn't know we were getting this award tonight. No, but I would like to say I've had such a great time working with John. He's anytime he calls, we put everything down and we're going to help. And this has been a great organization. And like I said, the catalytic converter event that we did, it was something actually Suzanne Bowering kind of brought up, and we liked the idea. And I talked to John, and we knew that we had one of our other members, Sal from the Subaru, and within like a few days we had this concept put together, and we all made phone calls and we divvied up what we were going to do. And you know, it's been such a great partnership, and we couldn't thank. We love the support that we get from all the local businesses. We're very fortunate. We have great support in the town of Wakefield. It's been a tough time for the last few years for police. I'm not gonna lie about that. It's been challenging, but the support that we get from the citizens and from the folks in this room, the small business owners, that's what keeps us going. So I just want to thank John for being such a fantastic partner, and all the chamber members. And this is really, we didn't know we were getting this tonight. I'm sure Chief Scory had a family engagement tonight that he had to be at, but I'll be happy to bring this to him tomorrow. I'm sure he'll be real proud. So thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Craig, and please tell the chief that we send our best wishes as well. The next award I have is a fun award. It's one I began a few years ago, and it's a bit selfish because it's my award that I like to give, and I've given to people because we've recognized organizations, we've recognized businesses over the years as necessary for what we'd like to do, and we've recognized awards. But a couple of years ago, I was thinking of the people or individuals that would always be there at an event I was having or the chamber was having. And they were steadfast. They would be there, whatever it might have been, a networking in the morning, a networking in the evening, a meeting such as this. And there was always somebody that stuck out in my mind. And I was meeting with some members of the board, and I was trying to think of what to call this award. And at first they came up with this name, and I was kind of taking off my pins with it. I said, oh, that sounds kind of goofy and gawky, but in a way it represents exactly how I feel. And I call it the Chamber Super Duper Award for an individual that goes above and beyond and actually has a little Superman symbol on the award here. And I gave it the first year to a gentleman that's not here tonight. Again, I've had a family event for his children. A lot of that's happening this evening. Somehow, Francie, we ran into a lot of family events for children that are graduating or whatever. So I gave Ed Harding from HD Physical Therapy the Super Duper Award because, boy, that guy, I couldn't shake him. He was at everything. I'd show up and he'd already be there. And I go, hey, Eddie, how do you do this? So I gave it again last year to another individual that was constantly there helping me out. And where's Ryan from Hawk Visual? Is he here? Ryan, stand up. There's Ryan's here. Ryan got it last year. So it is indeed an award that I take personal happiness in as a selfish award, because I'm able to give it to someone that I really think steps up and helps me and deserves to be recognized for all that they do to make my job easier and make things look good. So this year I came up with an individual that I thought, gosh, how did I not see this before? Because again, this is a person I just can't shake. It's like, let go of my leg. Holy smokes. No matter where I go, they're there. And this person is very well respected by all in this room and everyone that knows this individual, and especially by myself. I love this person. So it was a great, great pleasure that I present my Super Duper Award to Cheryl Carroll. Now we got to wait because she's got little legs. It'll take her a while to get here. Well deserved. Thank you, my friend. That young lady comes to just about everything. Last year at the Lynnfield Healthy Living Expo was 95 degrees. She walked around to every table and gave out chamber leaflets. This year she stood with me for 2 hours in the rain over in Lynnfield. So you name it, she's there, and she's a great member of the board of directors and a good friend of mine, despite all the kidding. All right, now we have one last award to give, and this is the Premier Award, the Jim Chisholm Award, which will be presented by Jim's daughter, Ann Hadley, who I think you all know. Ann? What a pair.
Can I shut this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to present the 11th Annual James Chisholm Leader in Business Award, an award presented in memory of my father, Jim Chisholm, who founded JC Marketing in 1964. This year we are celebrating our 59th year in business. The James Chisholm Leadership Award is presented to a business leader who exemplifies the spirit of Jim's generosity, guidance, and support of local business and organizations. According to the criteria, the award is presented to a modest leader who gives all to the community, is a motivator, inspires great community vitality, and is a mentor to others. This year, our recipient embodies so many of the traits that my father exhibited in his 5+ decades of business. And he was also a community leader. My father operated on the philosophy that it's better to give than receive. He knew that at the end of the day, he made a difference. All the character traits our recipient definitely has, and my father had a knack of bringing people together for the good of the community. I'm sure you will agree that this year's recipient was instrumental in bringing the community together, as we all thankfully lived through and we were able to communicate with one another during the worldwide pandemic. This year's recipient, like my father, works to make Wakefield a better place for us to live and work. The recipient, too, has worked tirelessly to make Wakefield a better place, more often behind the scenes. This year's recipient definitely fits all of the criteria and is well deserving of this award. Wakefield Community Access TV, WCAT, covered nearly 1,200 municipal meetings since 2020, the year that we will live on in infamy. Since we weren't able to venture out, WCAT brought a piece of the world to us. They broadcast virtual meetings in our homes and kept us informed. Aside from their extraordinary work during COVID, WCAD produces and broadcasts countless hours of local television from its studios at Wakefield High School. The task requires three staff members and some volunteers. Not only does WCAT film meetings of town boards, town meetings, and others, WCAT offers the local high school students and takes care of their sports, football, boys basketball, and boys and girls volleyball. Additionally, WCAT routinely runs religious programming and films and other important events, in addition to the town meetings such as Veterans Day, Memorial Day, the flag-raising ceremony events, just to name a few. WCAT provides training for high school students that covers camera operation, control room operations, switching soundboard, Zoom support for hybrid meetings and lighting, and the opportunity to provide commentary or high school sports programs. A little bit about WCAT. WCAT started operations in December 1990 in a rented space at 27 Water Street with Robert Haig as the general manager. Early shows included Like It Used to Be, Wakefield Focus, and the Cast Report. After 27 Water Street, WCAT was in several other locations, including the Warren School, the Montrose School, and finally its home at 24 Hemlock Road. Throughout the past 33 years, WCAT has brought community access to Wakefield, not only through our TV sets, but through community events like the Independence Day Committee and the sponsorship of the Movies by the Lake. May I present Ryan Boyd to accept the 11th Annual James Chisholm Leadership in Business Award on behalf of WCAT.
Wow, thank you. That's really special. I'm not big on talking in front of a crowd, so I'll try to make it quick. This is wonderful. Our team is pretty remarkable. Barbara, help me out because I'll just forget names because now I'm in front of a crowd. But we got Barbara Worley, Dominic Chadwick, George Rosatone, Ian McDermott, who was off filming the Juneteenth flag raising tonight, and volunteer extraordinaire Brian McCoubry was with him. We've got some our board members here tonight. Allie Houghton, president of the board of WCAT, Rob Branya, Tom Stapleton, former executive director and now a board member. Am I missing anybody? Paula, where's Paula? Paula, thank you so much. Listen, we really enjoy what we do. We love working within the community and working with all of you. You know, you look around and I'm not sure there's a group in this room that we don't work with. And if we don't, then come on down, we'll start. I don't know, it's nice to be recognized for the effort you put in, you know? So we just really appreciate it so very much. And thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ryan. Congratulations to WCAT. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, our evening is concluded. I want to thank you all very much for being here once again and always being supportive of the Chamber. Your presence here is important to us and very valuable for us as we move forward to know we have people like you behind us. So once again, I wish you a very, very good night. Congrats to our winners. Craig, wonderful. Cheryl, as always, thank you. And Lisa and Jeff, my apologies for forgetting you both. I won't do it again. Everyone, have a good night. Have a safe drive home and enjoy yourself. Thank you.